Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got something absolutely incredible lined up for you today. We are unpacking what I genuinely believe is one of the most intense, realistic, and frankly terrifying corporate case studies you will ever come across. We're going to dive really deep into the events of Office Drama Stories EP89. And the central theme of this whole thing is fascinating. It's titled, The AI Risk Score That Punished Honesty. Now, I want you to picture this. Imagine you're working at a massive corporation. This company just went through a huge, highly publicized transparency overhaul. The posters are on the walls, the emails have gone out from HR, and everyone assumes, okay, great, the work environment is finally safe. But here's the catch we're exploring today. The ghost of that old, toxic corporate culture, it doesn't come back with a boss yelling in a boardroom. Oh no, it comes back quietly. It hides right behind the sleek, unquestionable veneer of cutting-edge technology. So today we are going to put on our investigator hats. We're going to break down exactly how the truth was manipulated, how it was weaponized, and more importantly, how a small group of people dragged that truth back into the light using literally the driest, most boring data imaginable. It's an amazing story, so let's just jump right in.
Listen to this paradox right here because this really sets the stage for everything. The AI said the honest employees were the risk. That was the real warning. I really want you to take a second and just process the weight of that. When we hear about artificial intelligence in the corporate world, how is it always pitched to us, right? It's pitched as objective, it's emotionless, it's driven purely by data, which means it's entirely unbiased. At least, that's the marketing brochure. But what happens when an algorithm is quietly, secretly programmed to weaponize the existing corporate culture? Suddenly, the people who actually speak up, the folks who do the right thing and expose wrongdoing, are flagged by a supposedly neutral computer system as a threat. This wasn't some random glitch in the code, folks. It wasn't a bug that needed a quick patch. It was a feature. It was designed to do this. And that realization right there, that is the starting line for this incredible investigation.
All right, let's move into Section 1, the AI risk score.
Okay, so here is the specific label in question that the AI was slapping on people's profiles. Culture friction risk. Honestly, it sounds incredibly academic and professional, doesn't it? It sounds like something a very expensive consulting firm came up with. But let's look closer at how that label is actually defined. Notice how it targets very specific employees. It targets those who have made protected disclosures. In plain English, whistleblowers, people who reported issues. Instead of being protected under the company's brand new transparency policy, they are systematically flagged by an algorithm as organizational liabilities. This is where corporate jargon becomes incredibly dangerous. It takes ethical employees and seamlessly transforms them into potential saboteurs on a spreadsheet. It is literally the perfect cover. Because, think about it, who argues with an automated risk assessment? If a manager fires someone because they don't like them, that's an HR nightmare. If a manager fires someone because the AI risk score flagged them as high risk, well, that's just following the data.
Now Maya, who is the strategy lead and really our main investigator in this story, she recognized the trap immediately. She noted that the dangerous documents never actually look dangerous at first. They just look like administrative routine. And this is such a profound insight into how modern corporate malice actually works. In a normal workplace, malice rarely looks like a theatrical villain rubbing their hands together. It usually looks like a routine software update, or a new performance review template, or a minor, seemingly harmless process change that nobody bothers to read. Maya and the audit team realized something crucial. An algorithm ranking honest people as risks wasn't some leap forward in technological progress, not at all. It was just the old toxic management habits trying to sneak back into the building through the digital back door. It was the same old retaliation, just wearing a very modern, automated disguise.
That brings us right into Section 2, the corporate alibi.
So when confronted, how does leadership react? Well, we have this brilliant contrast. On one side, we have Adrian. He's the transformation officer, and he comes armed with a very polished, very rehearsed claim. He uses this soothing, incredibly detached language. He says, the model only predicts disruption patterns, not guilt or loyalty. Do you hear how clinical that sounds? It sounds entirely scientific. It's framed as if the AI is some force of nature, acting completely on its own, totally devoid of human influence or bias. It's just predicting patterns. But on the other side, the analysis team isn't buying it for a second. They ask a hard, uncompromising, and deeply necessary question. Who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? Think about that. Cui bono? If this system is just written off as an accidental bug or a quirky disruption predictor, who actually wins? Well, leadership gets to push out the honest employees, the whistleblowers, without ever facing legal retaliation charges, because they can just blame the machine. That one simple question from the team completely shatters the executive's soft, PR-friendly explanations.
Let's dig into the how in Section 3, following the digital trail.
This right here is how Maya builds her methodology. And honestly, this is something you could genuinely apply in your own work if you're ever dealing with a systemic issue. It's a clean, logical proof map. Step 1, identify the object. In this case, it's the AI risk label itself. Step 2, find the owner, who actually initiated the procurement of this specific AI module, who signed the checks. Step 3, check the timestamp. This is absolutely critical. Was this AI system installed before or after the whistleblowers came forward? The timeline is everything when you're proving intent. And finally, step 4, determine the beneficiary. Maya knows that while people in a boardroom might lie, they might deflect, they might use big words to confuse you, a systematic digital record cannot lie. It doesn't care. When you map the evidence out logically like this, step by step, it creates a pristine, clean path straight from the retaliatory action back to the person responsible.
And that brings us to the absolute unsung hero of this entire story, Nina. Nina is an executive assistant, and she proves a universal truth of the corporate world. The people doing the invisible background work see absolutely everything. The executives in this story thought they were being clever. They scrubbed their official emails. They made sure the formal communications looked completely innocent. But they completely forgot about the background noise. Nina pulled the calendar exports. She found the crossed-out, messy draft notes from early meetings. She pulled the visitor logs from the front desk. These are what we call invisible records. And what did they show? They showed booking trails and physical access records that completely contradicted the official corporate story. Sure, the emails were clean, but Nina's diligent record-keeping proved that executive leadership was secretly meeting with the AI vendor, off hours, long before they claimed the project even started. It's brilliant.
Now we transition to the technical side in Section 4, the raw audit logs.
Enter Jordan, the IT audit specialist. Now, Jordan's job in this investigation was essentially translation. You know, in the movies, tech investigations always look so glamorous. It's always dramatic, rapid-fire typing with glowing green code flying across a dark screen while someone says, "I'm in." But in reality, real forensic tech work is boring. And that's its superpower. Jordan just quietly gathered the raw server logs, the access fields, the device records, and the owner history. He took all of that complex, intimidating technical fog that executives use to confuse people, and he stripped it all away. What he presented wasn't a complex algorithm. It was an undeniable sequence of human actions behind the machine. It proved that the AI didn't just invent this behavior. A human being logged in, a human changed a parameter field, a human approved a specific pathway.
And this leads to one of the most powerful moments in the whole explainer. Jordan says, "This is not suspicion, this is sequence." Man, what a mic drop. When Adrian Vale, the executive, tried to argue that the data needed to be interpreted or that they needed to view it through a broader strategic lens to soften the blow, Jordan stopped him dead in his tracks with that statement. There is absolutely no need for emotional interpretation. There is no room for executive gaslighting when you are staring at a raw database export. Numbers, exact server timestamps, and unique user IDs, they form an unbreakable chain, a sequence of events. And sequence completely bypasses whatever forced PR-friendly narrative the leadership team is trying to spin.
Moving right along to Section 5, exposing the training data.
So here is the smoking gun. This completely exposes the terrifying reality of algorithmic bias. When they dug into the vendor's files, they found a dirty label. Past whistleblowers, people who had legitimately reported issues in the past, were deliberately categorized in the AI's training data as disruption events. Not as ethics compliance cases, not as protection cases, disruption events. Look, machine learning isn't magic. It completely relies on the data that human beings feed into it. The AI model itself might have been technologically clean, but it was intentionally fed corrupt, highly biased labels specifically designed to punish honesty. The executives essentially taught the machine how to retaliate automatically. They built an automated hitman so they could keep their own hands completely clean. It is a stunning misuse of technology.
And then we get the confrontation. Maya sits down with leadership and she says, "I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust the record you created." I love this because Maya didn't yell. She didn't pound her fists on the table. She didn't make emotional appeals about workplace fairness. She simply backed them into an inescapable corner using their own data. She took their official excuse and she laid it right on the table next to the actual timestamp timeline and those dirty training labels. The contrast was so stark, so undeniably glaring that it silenced the entire room. It proves a beautiful point. The truth really doesn't need to raise its voice when it brought the receipts.
So how do we move forward? Let's look at Section 6, Fixing the Broken System.
Once the truth was out, Maya's team took decisive, immediate action. Naturally, the corporate leadership wanted to handle the scandal quietly. They wanted to do an internal review, keep it off the books, and save face. But the audit team flat out refused. Instead, they forced the implementation of highly visible, actionable repairs. Number 1, they froze the current AI model immediately. Stop the bleeding. Number 2, they published a full data label audit for the entire company to see. They showed everybody exactly how the sausage was made. And number 3, which is the most important, they required a formal human rights review for any future automated employees scoring. They didn't just ask for an apology, they built permanent structural controls that would easily outlive the specific people sitting in that boardroom.
And that brings us to the core philosophy of the team, which is just profound. Do not quietly fix what can publicly teach. Write the lesson into the process. Why does this matter so much? Because private fixes, those quiet, behind-closed-doors NDA settlements, they only serve to protect the executives. They make leadership comfortable, while leaving every single future employee completely exposed to the exact same risk down the road. Radical transparency is quite literally the only vaccine for a broken corporate culture. By forcing the company to write the lesson directly into the operational process, you build institutional memory. You ensure that making this exact same malicious mistake again is incredibly, undeniably hard to do.
The record did not raise its voice. It simply waited for someone patient enough to read it. If there is one overarching message from this entire case study, it's this. In any workplace dispute, in any toxic environment, the ultimate, most loyal witness you will ever have isn't a charismatic colleague. It's not a friendly manager. It is a preserved, patient, undeniable paper trail. Data is completely fearless. Data cannot be gaslit. It cannot be intimidated. And most importantly, data cannot be fired. It just waits for someone willing to look at it closely.
Before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a provocative question. I want you to evaluate your own environment, whether you work in an office, remotely, or anywhere else. In your workplace, does the truth need permission to appear? Do honest employees have to gamble their careers or risk being labeled a culture friction risk just to point out something that is genuinely broken? A truly safe corporate culture isn't a culture where conflict doesn't exist. It's one where the truth has a clear, systemic, and protected path to the light, without needing anyone's favor or permission. Think about that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking the tough questions, keep an eye on those algorithms, and I will catch you on the next one.